What happens when one of Hollywood's most beloved actors walks into what should be a routine morning talk show appearance, only to find himself trapped in a verbal battlefield with a host determined to tear him down? What you're about to witness is the most explosive television moment of the year, a clash so intense that it ended with security escorting a Hollywood legend off the set while millions watched in stunned silence. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me which celebrity you think would win in a debate against Joy Behar. Trust me, after you see what happened to Danny DeVito, you might change your answer. The morning started like any other at The View's Manhattan studio. Danny DeVito had arrived early, his usual cheerful demeanor intact as he chatted with production assistants and makeup artists. At 79 years old, the actor had done thousands of interviews, promoted countless projects, and charmed audiences across decades of television appearances. He thought this would be just another friendly chat about his latest film project. But Joy Behar had other plans. As the cameras rolled and the familiar View theme music faded, the tension was already palpable. Joy sat at her usual spot, a stack of papers in front of her that would soon become weapons in an unexpected war of words. Danny settled into the guest chair, that trademark smile lighting up his face as he waved to the studio audience. "So Danny, great to have you back on the show," Joy began, her voice carrying an edge that regular viewers might have recognized as trouble brewing. "I have to ask you about some comments you made recently about working conditions in Hollywood." Danny's eyebrows raised slightly. This wasn't the direction he expected the interview to take, but he rolled with it. "Well, Joy, I've always been an advocate for fair treatment of everyone on set, from the biggest stars to the craft services team. It's about respect and dignity for all workers." "That's interesting," Joy replied, leaning forward with a predatory smile. "Because I have it on good authority that you've been quite difficult to work with lately. Sources tell me you've been making unreasonable demands, showing up late, and generally acting like a diva." The studio audience shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't the warm promotional interview they expected. Danny's smile faltered for just a moment before he composed himself. "Joy, I'm not sure where you're getting that information, but it's simply not true. I pride myself on professionalism. I've been doing this for over 50 years, and I can count on one hand the number of times I've been late to set." But Joy wasn't backing down. She shuffled through her papers dramatically, as if she had a smoking gun. "Really? Because I have reports here that say you held up production on your last 3 projects with your demands for special treatment. One source says you required your trailer to be positioned exactly 30 feet from catering, no more, no less." Danny actually chuckled at this. 30 feet from catering? "Joy, do you hear how ridiculous that sounds? I eat whatever's available, wherever it's available. I'm not exactly known for being high maintenance. Are you calling my sources liars, Danny?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. The other hosts exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable with the direction Joy was taking the interview. This was supposed to be a light promotional segment, not an interrogation. "I'm saying that whoever told you those things either has me confused with someone else, or they're not telling you the truth," Danny replied, his voice remaining calm but his posture straightening. "I've worked with some of the same crew members for decades. They'll tell you I'm the guy who brings donuts for everyone, not the guy making ridiculous demands." Joy's voice sharpened. "So you're saying I didn't do my homework? That I came on national television without checking my facts?" "Joy, I'm saying that maybe you should consider the possibility that someone gave you bad information. It happens to all of us. The important thing is to correct it when we find out." But Joy was on a roll now, her voice rising. "I've been doing journalism for longer than you've been making people laugh, Danny. I know how to verify sources. I know how to fact-check. And I'm telling you, multiple people have told me you've become impossible to work with." Danny's famous patience was beginning to wear thin, but he tried one more diplomatic approach. "Look, Joy, I came here today to talk about my new movie, to have some fun with you and the ladies, maybe tell a few stories that would make people smile. I don't know why you want to turn this into some kind of confrontation, but it's not fair to me, and it's not fair to your audience, who tuned in expecting something else entirely." "What's not fair," Joy shot back, "is actors thinking they can get away with bad behavior just because they're famous. What's not fair is people like you coming on shows like this expecting softball questions when there are real issues to discuss. Real issues? Danny's voice carried a note of incredulity. Joy, you're talking about alleged catering preferences and call times. These aren't real issues. These are gossip items that somebody fed you, and for reasons I can't understand, you decided to use them to ambush a guest who came here in good faith. The tension in the studio was thick enough to cut with a knife. Audience members were whispering among themselves, and even the cameramen seemed uncomfortable. This was television history in the making, but not the good kind. Joy leaned back in her chair with a satisfied smirk. So now I'm ambushing you? I'm just asking questions, Danny. If you can't handle questions, maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews. That's when something shifted in Danny DeVito's demeanor. The jovial actor, the man who had spent decades making people laugh and feel good, finally reached his breaking point. Danny DeVito sat forward in his chair, his hands clasped together, and when he spoke again, his voice carried a weight that made everyone in the studio pay attention. You know what, Joy? You want to ask me real questions? Let's talk about real issues. Let's talk about how you just spent the last 10 minutes attacking my character based on unnamed sources with unverified claims. Let's talk about what that says about the state of television journalism today. Joy's smirk wavered slightly, but she pressed on. Don't lecture me about journalism, Danny. I've been holding politicians and celebrities accountable for decades while you've been playing pretend for a living. Playing pretend? Danny's eyebrows shot up. Is that what you think acting is? Joy, I've spent my career telling stories that matter, working with writers and directors to create art that makes people think, that makes them feel something. What have you contributed to the world besides stirring up conflict for ratings? The other hosts were now openly staring at Joy, clearly disturbed by how she had derailed what should have been a pleasant interview. Whoopi looked like she wanted to intervene, but Joy was in full attack mode now. At least I deal in facts, not fantasy, Joy snapped. At least when I go to work, I'm engaging with the real world, not hiding behind makeup and costumes. Danny actually laughed, but there was no humor in it. Facts? Joy? You haven't presented a single fact since this interview started. You've made vague accusations from anonymous sources, and when I tried to address them reasonably, you doubled down instead of admitting you might be wrong. That's not journalism, that's gossip mongering. How dare you? Joy's voice rose to a near shout. I am a respected journalist. I have won awards. I have interviewed presidents and prime ministers. I don't need some washed-up actor telling me how to do my job. The insult hung in the air like a slap. Danny DeVito, one of Hollywood's most enduring and beloved figures, had just been called washed up on national television. The studio audience gasped audibly. Danny stood up slowly from his chair, and when he spoke, his voice was deadly calm. Washed up? Joy. I've been working steadily for 50 years. I direct, I produce, I act. I run a production company that employs hundreds of people. I've got 3 projects coming out next year alone. But you know what? Even if I was washed up, even if my career was over tomorrow, at least I could look back on decades of making people happy instead of making them angry. Sit down, Danny, Joy commanded, as if she had any authority over him. You're on my show, and you'll follow my rules. Your show? Danny looked around at the other hosts, his gesture encompassing the entire set. I thought this was The View, not the Joy Behar Hour. I thought this was supposed to be a conversation between multiple perspectives, not one person's platform for attacking guests. Joy was practically vibrating with rage now. I am the senior host here. I have every right to ask whatever questions I want. If you can't handle that, then maybe you should leave. You know what, Joy? Maybe I should. But before I do, let me ask you something. Do you actually think this is good television? Do you think your audience tuned in today hoping to watch you bully a guest? Do you think ABC is proud to have their network associated with this kind of behavior? Joy shot to her feet as well, pointing an accusatory finger at Danny. Don't you dare question my methods. I've been doing this longer than you've been relevant. I know what makes good television, and I know what the audience wants to see. Really? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've forgotten that television is supposed to serve the audience, not your ego. Danny's voice carried across the studio with surprising power for such a small man. You brought me here under false pretenses, ambushed me with unsubstantiated gossip, and when I tried to respond professionally, you escalated the conflict instead of backing down like any reasonable person would do. The other hosts were now looking at Joy with expressions ranging from embarrassment to outright disapproval. Even the production crew seemed uncomfortable, with several producers visible in the wings making frantic gestures. Joy's face was red with fury. I don't need to take this from you. Security can escort you out right now if you don't sit down and answer my questions properly. Danny spread his arms wide, his voice filled with disbelief. Are you threatening me? You invite me as a guest on your show, attack me with false information, insult my career, and now you're threatening to have me thrown out because I defended myself? Do you hear yourself right now? I hear someone who can't handle being held accountable. Joy shot back. I hear someone who's used to everyone kissing his feet because he's a celebrity, and he can't deal with real questions from real journalists. Real journalists don't attack their guests, Joy. Real journalists ask tough questions, yes, but they base them on facts, not rumors. Real journalists listen to answers instead of just waiting for their next opportunity to attack. And real journalists certainly don't call their guests washed up when they don't get the responses they want. By now, several producers had appeared at the edge of the set, clearly trying to figure out how to salvage the situation. But Joy seemed oblivious to everything except her desire to win this verbal battle. You want facts? Here's a fact for you, Danny. Your last 3 movies went straight to streaming because nobody wanted to see them in theaters. Your television show got canceled. Your production company hasn't had a hit in years. Those are facts. Danny's eyes narrowed dangerously. And here's a fact for you, Joy. My last 3 movies were critically acclaimed indies that I chose to make because they told important stories, not because I needed the money. My television show ran for 15 successful seasons and ended because I wanted to pursue other projects, and my production company just signed a 3-picture deal with a major studio. But you know what the biggest fact of all is? What's that? Joy demanded. The fact that you don't know any of this because you didn't bother to do actual research before trying to tear me down on national television. You just took some gossip and ran with it because you thought it would make for dramatic television. The silence that followed Danny's words was deafening. Joy stood frozen, her mouth slightly open, clearly not expecting to have her research methods so thoroughly exposed. But her embarrassment quickly morphed into something darker. How dare you question my professionalism? She seethed, her voice shaking with rage. I have been in this business since before you were crawling out of whatever hole you came from. I don't need some little troll telling me how to do my job. The studio audience collectively gasped at the personal insult. Even by Joy's standards, calling a guest a troll on live television was beyond the pale. The other hosts looked mortified, with one actually covering her face with her hands. Danny's expression hardened, but his voice remained controlled. There at Island, when you can't win with facts, when you can't defend your behavior, you resort to personal attacks about my appearance. This is what passes for journalism on The View now. Calling guest names when they point out your failures? Joy seemed to realize she had crossed a line, but instead of backing down, she doubled down with vicious intensity. I'm just calling it like I see it, Danny. You walk in here thinking you're untouchable, thinking you can charm your way through any question, but I see right through you. You're nothing but a has-been actor who can't accept that nobody cares about him anymore. That was the moment Danny DeVito's legendary patience finally snapped completely. His voice rose to fill the entire studio, projecting with the power of decades of stage and screen experience. Nobody cares about me anymore? Joy, I have fans all over the world who grew up watching me, who bring their kids to meet me at premieres, who quote my movies back to me on the street. I get thousands of letters every week from people telling me how my work affected their lives. But you know what? Even if none of that were true, even if I was completely forgotten tomorrow, I would still have more dignity and class than you've shown in the last 20 minutes. Joy was practically foaming at the mouth now. Dignity and class? You're having a meltdown on national television because you can't handle a few simple questions. This is what dignity looks like to you? Simple questions? Danny's laugh was bitter. Joy, You started this interview with false accusations from unnamed sources, escalated to personal attacks on my career, called me washed up, questioned my relevance, and then called me a troll to my face. If you think those are simple questions, then you have no business being in journalism at all. The producers were now frantically signaling from off-camera, clearly trying to get someone to end this disaster, but both Joy and Danny were too locked in combat to notice. Joy pointed her finger directly at Danny's face. I have every right to ask whatever questions I want on my own show. If you don't like it, you can get out right now. Your show? Danny gestured broadly to include the other hosts. This isn't your show, Joy. This is The View, and last I checked, there were supposed to be multiple viewpoints here. But all I see is one bitter person trying to destroy a guest for sport. Joy's voice reached a shrieking pitch. Get out! Get out of my studio right now! I don't have to sit here and listen to this abuse from some washed-up little man who thinks he's better than everyone else. Danny spread his arms wide, his voice filled with incredulous disbelief. I'm abusing you? Joy, you've spent the entire interview attacking me, and now when I defend myself, you're the victim? Do you have any self-awareness at all? By this point, security guards were visible at the edges of the set, clearly receiving instructions through their earpieces. The other hosts were looking anywhere but at the confrontation, obviously wishing they could disappear. Joy was beyond rational thought now, her voice cracking with fury. I want him out of here now. Get this man away from me. He's being aggressive and threatening. Danny's eyebrows shot up to his hairline. Threatening? Joy, I haven't moved from this spot. I haven't raised my voice above yours. I haven't called you names or made personal attacks. All I've done is respond to your accusations and defend my reputation. If you think that's threatening, then maybe you shouldn't be interviewing people at all. Security, now! Joy screamed, actually backing away from Danny as if he posed some physical danger, even though he hadn't moved toward her once during the entire confrontation. Two large security guards approached the set cautiously, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. One of them spoke quietly to Danny. Sir, we're going to need to ask you to come with us. Danny looked at the security guard with complete bewilderment. Are you serious right now? I'm being escorted out because I defended myself against false accusations? Because I pointed out unprofessional behavior? The security guard looked genuinely sympathetic. Sir, we just need to follow orders. This will all get sorted out later. Danny nodded slowly, his dignity intact even in this surreal moment. He looked directly into the nearest camera, speaking to the millions of viewers watching this unfold. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just witnessed something that I never thought I'd experience in 50 years of doing interviews. You've seen what happens when journalism becomes a contact sport, when ambush tactics replace actual conversation, and when ego becomes more important than truth. Joy was still ranting in the background, but Danny's calm voice cut through her hysteria. I came here today to talk about my work, to share some stories, maybe make a few people smile. Instead, I was subjected to character assassination based on anonymous sources and unverified claims. When I tried to respond professionally, I was met with escalating attacks on my career, my relevance, and finally my physical appearance. He paused, letting his words sink in as the security guards waited respectfully for him to finish. I've worked with thousands of people over 5 decades in this business. I've been interviewed by everyone from local news anchors to major network hosts to international press. I've never, not once, been treated with such disrespect and unprofessionalism. The saddest part is that this didn't have to happen. All it would have taken was a simple acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, the information was wrong. As the security guards gently escorted him toward the exit, Danny turned back one final time. His voice carried across the stunned studio with remarkable composure. Joy, I genuinely hope you find whatever it is you're looking for in life, but I hope you find it without having to tear down other people to make yourself feel better. And with that, Danny DeVito walked off. The View set with his head held high, leaving behind one of the most shocking moments in daytime television history. The cameras kept rolling as Joy stood there, breathing heavily, seemingly unsure what to do next. The other hosts sat in stunned silence, and the studio audience buzzed with shocked whispers about what they had just witnessed. That's the story of how Danny DeVito got kicked off The View after a viral clash with Joy Behar that exposed the ugly side of modern television journalism. What did you think of how Danny handled himself in that impossible situation? Drop a comment below and let me know if you think he should have walked out earlier or if he was right to defend himself until the very end. And don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories from the world of entertainment.